Hi, welcome to week 4 of the intervention course. Okay, so this is us. We've got to the end now. We've got everything together, and this is it. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where you deliver the intervention. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through actually delivering the intervention, getting it started. And okay, let's start. The first thing is you need to do a bit of preparation and take all the time you need to prepare. Don't rush this step. The more you prepared you are going into this, the more effective it's liable to be, and the more effective it's liable to be, the more successful it's liable to be. So take your time, think everything through, make sure that you feel prepared. Now, some people just want to go in there and just talk off the top of their head. Bad idea. This is not a good idea, because what happens is it becomes emotionally charged. And if it becomes emotionally charged, you forget what you're going to say. People start talking over the top of each other and you kind of lose the place. And what you don't want is to come to the end of the intervention and go, oh, I wish I'd said this, or I wish I'd said that. Write it all down. Put it on a piece of paper so that you don't have to read it out to your drinker, but you have to have it there so that you know exactly what you're going to say, the order you're going to say it in. At the very least, make some notes, even if it's just some headings on some cards or something, just so that you know exactly what it is that you want to say and when you want to say it. So when you write it down, start with a short introduction. You start by how much you love your drinker, because what you want to do is you want to start off on a positive note, not starting throwing recriminations and you did this, you did that, you want to start off by saying how much you love your drinker. Presumably you do love your drinker. If you don't, then that's going to be even more difficult, but most people who go into this intervention do so because they actually love the drinker. And one of the things to do is to talk about the times when things were good, and how it would be good to get back to that time again, how the things that you used to do together. Maybe you used to go out walking together, maybe you went cycling together, maybe whatever it was you did, maybe you had interests that you shared and that really you want to go back to these things. So the intervention should start off on a positive note. So don't forget to write all of this down before you start. Alright, continuing with your preparation. You should have been through SHARE, you should have gone through all the various categories, and you should have gone through then and scored them and decided that these are the most serious issues in my life caused by my drinker. Okay? Now, what you should do is put these serious issues down on paper so that when you are talking to your drinker, then you know exactly, again, what it is that you want to say, that you don't get, sidelined by these, or you don't get sidetracked. So, put the most serious issue at the beginning. The safety issue should always be first. If there is a safety issue with your drinker, then put it first and foremost, because that's probably the most important one of them all. The rest of them are pretty important, but that is probably the most important one of all. So put it at the beginning. And remember, this isn't a kind of accusation about you're doing this, you're doing that. What you're actually saying is this is how it affects us. This is what your drinking does to the family. This is what your drinking does to us. This is what your drinking does to the relationships, to the environment of a house. This is how how it affects our lives. And that's really what you're talking about to your drinker. So just remember that. It's all about you and how it's affecting you. Okay, remember to make notes about exactly what it is you found in terms of solutions. But first of all, you need to ask your drinker for what you want them to do. What most drinkers will do is they'll say something like, "Oh, I'm going to cut down, I'm going to stop, I'm going to, and that's fine. But say this is what you want," because the majority of drinkers who come to me don't come and say, "Oh, do you know something? I really want to stop drinking for the rest of my life." Very few will say that. There are the odd one or two, but it's generally because something really dramatic has happened. But most drinkers will come and say they want to reduce their drinking or they want to control their drinking. Many of them talk about going back to normal drinking, but that ship tends to have sailed quite some time ago. So if you are wanting your drinker to be abstinent, then you have to ask them. You have to say, "This is what I want." This is your time to say exactly what it is that you want from them. Now, you might want them to be drinking you might want them to stop drinking for the rest of their life, and I can understand why that might be the case. But what you will be looking for, at least here, is for them to be absent for at least a specified amount of time. Now, what many people do is they do a dry January, so they stop drinking for maybe 30 days, and then at the end of that, very often they come back and say, "Well, look, I've stopped drinking for 30 days, obviously I don't have an alcohol problem." Well, that's not necessarily the case. It takes about 3 months before you start to break habits. So you might be wise saying, if they're only going to stop for a period and not stop it altogether, then at least ask for a realistic period, like something like 3 months. That's how long I want you to stop drinking. That way you have a fighting chance of, as I say, some habits being broken and some new habits, some new positive habits being found. The second thing is about, the services that are available. Now, as I've said before, stopping drinking, there are two parts to this. The first part is stopping, and the second part is staying stopped. Now, your drinker may or may not be heavily dependent on alcohol. They may suffer withdrawal symptoms. They may suffer from physical withdrawal symptoms like shakes, sweats, maybe even convulsions. Or it might be sort of more psychological, where there is anxiety and panic attacks, insomnia. But that has helped to get them through this period. And some people have really bad withdrawals, in which case, we're looking at maybe the DTs, convulsions, etc. And this is a medical emergency. They do actually need help. They do need medical attention at that point. Now, there is medical attention there, whether they have sort of severe withdrawals or, moderate or even sort of fairly, mild withdrawals. And the GP can help with that. The local alcohol and drug agencies can help with that, and if they are really bad, then maybe rehab, where they will actually go into residential care for 7 to 28 days. So these services are there and they are available, so you can talk to your drinker about them. The second thing is about maintaining sobriety, and there are ongoing support from places like Alcoholics Anonymous and Smart Recovery. Alcoholics Anonymous, very, very often people, when they join Alcoholics Anonymous, they go to it for years to maintain their sobriety. And one of the reasons is it's not just because they are frightened that if they don't go, then they'll start drinking again. Part of it is because they found a new social life, they found a new social circle, and that can be really helpful. It can be really helpful to help them maintain sobriety. but it can also be quite enjoyable because they've found a lot of friends. So these are things that you can offer your drinker, because they probably will not come up with these solutions themselves. Okay, so now hopefully you're ready to go. You've got it all down in paper, you've got your notes, you know what it is that you want to say, you know the order that you want to say it in. Now, rather than just run through it in your head, what a good idea is to get your team together and all sit down and do a little presentation to each other. So a rehearsal, a kind of dress rehearsal. For a start, it helps to do that because it lets you know what each one of you are going to say and whether you're on the same page, whether you are actually saying similar things. We don't want you all to say the same thing, but we want you to say it has to be a kind of similar message, a cohesive message, rather than everybody saying something completely different altogether. The other thing that allows you to do is it lets you decide just what the order of these messages will be. Who's going to speak first, then who, but it also gives you an opportunity to hear what everybody's going to say, and what it sounds like, so that you're not actually surprised on the day of the intervention itself. So get the team together, have a rehearsal. Again, it's about being prepared. And the better prepared you are, the more effective this will be. The more effective it is, the better the outcome will be. Okay, you've got your presentation all together, and you've got your notes or your transcript of what it is that you're going to say. You've done your rehearsal. You know that your team are all on the same page, roughly what they're going to say, the order that they're going to speak in. Now what you really want is a time and a place. Now the obvious thing is that you talk to your drinker when your drinker has not been drinking, because it tends to be pointless if they're drunk. Apart from anything else, they won't remember much about it. So try and find a time when your drinker is not drinking, when they are sober. That might be a problem if you have got a 24/7 drinker. If they're drinking, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then your chances of finding a time when they're really not drinking are going to be fairly slim. So what to do in this case is look at the times when they have been drinking the least. Now that tends to be in the morning when they first get up, that they haven't really had much to drink at that point. They may have alcohol in their system from the night before and they may be heading for another drink, but that may be the best time that you can get them. You have to work around it. It also needs to be a time when your whole team is available. You need to be all there, to support each other. So probably goes without saying. Where you do it, perhaps at home is the best place, at your drinker's home. That's if they live with you. Otherwise you may have to go to their home. Anyway, it should be somewhere where your drinker feels fairly relaxed, that there's not going to be any distractions, there's not going to be other people about. What you don't want is an audience. That will probably make all of you feel uncomfortable, and certainly it may make your drinker feel extremely uncomfortable. So somewhere where you can have privacy, where you have a quiet, where there are no distractions. And it's a good idea to turn off the phones. Now what you may want is to have your notes on your phone, in which case that's fine, but put it onto the flight mode. Then you won't get any messages coming in the middle of it. Again, that's a distraction. And ask your drinker to turn off their phone, because again, if it goes off, then it might give them an opportunity or an excuse to talk to somebody else and ignore you. So Okay, this is it. This is the moment you've been waiting for. You have your notes, you've done your rehearsals, you have your team there, you have your drinker there, and now it's time to go. Well, the first thing is that, you are the lead. Unless you have invited some alcohol professional to come in and take the lead. The interventionists are people who will come in and do just exactly that. They will take a lead, they will run the whole show. But they can be extremely expensive, and to some extent it kind of lacks the personal touch. So you may have brought in an interventionist, you may not, but if you haven't, then you're it. You take the lead. You're the one who will direct what goes on here. So the first thing that you need to do is state why you're there, which is basically you're there to talk about the drinking. And that would be your opening statement. We are all here because we are concerned. We want to talk about your drinking. You can introduce everybody or let them introduce themselves. If your drinker knows them all, which would probably be the case, then they just have to say, I'm here. It doesn't have to be a long introduction or anything like that. But the starting point really is talking about loving your drinker. You really want to sort of bring this away from an atmosphere of guilt, shame, accusation, and you want to bring it to an atmosphere of love, where your drinker does feel as if everybody is here concerned about them. Everybody's here not to tell them how bad they are, but to say that, really we're here because we love you. We're here because we really are concerned. We're really bothered about you, and maybe even say, that we kind of want our friend back. We want our dad back. We want our, whatever the relationship is. So it really is, as I say, and this is very, very important, is that at the beginning it's about trying to make the drinker feel relaxed, trying to make the drinker feel that they are loved, because they are more likely to change because people love them than change because people are accusing them, particularly if they drink, to get away from problems. Then the last thing that you want to do is give them problems in their head, give them anxiety, because they probably won't want to shy away from it. Yeah, okay, you've tried to create this atmosphere of love, but unfortunately, inevitably, you have to start and talk about the problems. I have to start and talk about the consequences of drinking. And this is all the stuff that you have identified through SHARE. Now, people do not change unless there are consequences. Nobody changes because they think everything's going wonderfully. People change because things are not going so well. So really, the consequences are the stick that drives change. However, try and talk about it in a matter-of-fact way. Try not to be spreading guilt and shame, because again, if the drinker finds that they can't really handle drink and shame, and they drink because of guilt and shame, then clearly there's going to be a problem. It's going to be that bit more difficult. So you need to talk about the consequences, but you try and, as I say, I'm not saying you should play them down, but just don't make it a guilt trip. Now, everybody else around the room should now talk about the consequences for them, because each of them are there because they love your drinker, but each of them are there because they see consequences in that drinking, maybe for themselves, maybe for the friendship, maybe what they used to do is they used to go and play golf with your drinker, or they used to go somewhere with your drinker, they were great friends with your drinker, and now that isn't really happening, and it's not really happening because of the drinker, so they have lost something, they've lost a friend. So it's important that they talk about their guilt, they talk about their issues, not your issues, but their issues and how it affects them. You then should ask your drinker about, what's your reaction? What's your reaction to what we have been saying? What's your reaction to, for argument's sake, say, we are losing friends, we don't go anywhere anymore, the relationship is... What's your reaction to that? And what you're trying to gauge here is there is there a way in here where you can start to get your drinker starts to see that the problem really lies in their drinking, that it's the drinking that is causing all these issues, that's causing all these consequences. Now what your drinker may do is they may say, yeah, I can see it, and that would be fantastic. However, your drinker may actually be very much in denial. That's something that you can only find out by going through this intervention. It's hard to tell beforehand. But what you are hoping for is you're hoping for a positive reaction, and a positive reaction being, yes, I see your point, we need to do something about it. So, to try and get more of a reaction about what you've been saying, here are some more questions that you may want to throw into the mix at this point. If you have a drinker who is, 24/7, then maybe one of the questions you want to ask them is, when was the last day you did not drink or use? And that in itself may start to get them to think. If you have a drinker that's just a weekend drinker, then you could say, well, when was the last weekend that you didn't drink? If they are sort of drinking a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then you might ask it. Again, modify the questions specific to your drinker. Make sure that that the questions they are asked are completely relevant to them. And maybe you sort of throw out a consequence and say, how do you think that makes me feel? Not how do you feel about it, how do you think it makes me feel? Because what you're trying to see here is, do they have any empathy? Do they realise what it is that they are actually they are doing? Do they realise the consequences of their drinking? And these are quite powerful questions, because it's these are questions that really are asking them something quite deep and meaningful that they may or they may not have thought of it. Do you think you're in a good place in your life? Do you think that you're in, that are you happy? Is this making you happy? Do you know how much money you've spent on alcohol? And that can be quite considerable. So what we really, that's a kind of two-pronged attack, three-pronged attack actually. You're asking, how do you think this makes me feel? How are you feeling? And then the finances. So you're asking about all the different aspects of their drinking. And are you aware of your behaviour when whatever it is that they do? And is that really how you want to be? I mean, by the end of my drinking, one of the things that really made me want to stop was I didn't want to be the person that I was anymore. I didn't like to be that selfish person. I didn't like hurting people. I didn't like any of that. That was my issue. And that was what really, really sort of made me want to stop. And it was, no, that was not the way I wanted to be. I did not want to be that person. So again, this is quite a powerful question. And then, do you know how much I love you and why I want you to get help? So you're kind of deflecting it from, I am not just a killjoy who is trying to take away your fun. It's because I love you and I see you're hurting yourself and I want you to get help. You may think of other questions yourself that you would like to throw in here, but again, it's the more they think about their drinking, the more they analyse the drinking and the relationship to the consequences of the drink and the relationship to unhappiness, then the more likely changes. So you can use these questions or you can use others that you can throw in yourself. The obvious question at this stage is, okay, so what are you going to do about it? And this is where you really start to get the impression of, is this working or is it not working? Am I getting through to my drinker? Now what they might say is, yeah, I'm going to change. But very often when people say that, what it means is really, go away and leave me alone. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Get off my back. But having got your drinker here, you then have to press home. This is important now, because at this point you have to ask questions. And the first question is, I'm going to change. How are you going to change? And this is an important question because they may not have actually thought it through. They may only be saying this to, so that you go away and leave them alone. Many times drinkers do this, I'll go to AA or something like that. And then the next question, obviously, is when? When are you going to do that? Is this going to happen? So how are you going to do it and when are you going to do it? Both important question. It's putting your drinker on the spot. Because your goal from this is to actually get some kind of answer out of your drinker. It's to get change, obviously, but you have to get to a place where your drinker is actually going to start to talk to you and they're going to start and talk about change. And the other question is, and what will that look like? This change that you're talking about, what's it actually going to look like? And probably if they have actually thought it through, then they should be able to tell you. If they haven't, then they won't. And the other thing is, I don't need help. I can do this alone. And that's the time when you say, well, how many times have you tried this in the past? So what makes this different? How is it going to be a success this time if it's never been a success in the past? What has changed? What makes this different? And again, you have to press your drinker on this one. And that's when it's good to have a team round about you, because they will support you in this. They will help you in this, and you can actually feel safe within that team. The other thing that's helpful is that you've actually researched the solutions. So you know what the solutions look like. You know what's out there. You know what's available. You know what can help and what can't help. So at this point, you start to offer your drinker solutions. I think you should go to the GP. I think you should go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I think we should start talking about rehab. So you have done your homework and you know what this is all about. And your drinker may not be, they might not be prepared for how prepared you are. They might not realise that you've actually, done your homework, that you know what's available out there, that you know what can work and what can't work. So the more preparation you've done, and I know I'm saying this and I'm saying and I keep saying it, but the more preparation you've done, the more effective your intervention is going to be. So what what's your goal in this intervention? Well, first and foremost, your goal is to get some agreement that your drinker is going to change, that they are going to actually do something about the drinking. That's the beginning of it. Now, it may be that their agreement will be that they will get help, but what you're looking for is something specific from the drinker, not something kind of vague, or yes, I'll do something sometime, etc. And what your drinker may do is they may give you that sort of rather unspecific agreement. Again, as I talked about already, the drinker may, if they are not really ready to change, then you may have to push them in some of these aspects. You may have to push them about, what exactly are you going to do? And part of that is, okay, if you said you're going to change, then what's your plan for doing this? How are you going to go about it? And this is where your research on what the solutions are, what's available in terms of help, can become extremely useful, because you can start and talk to them about that and start and get maybe some agreement that they will go to the GP, they will go to the local alcohol and drug agency, they will go to AA. So you're looking for not just an agreement, but an actual plan of how they're going to change, how it's going to be achieved. Also, you're looking for a time scale, because again, it could be sort of, yes, I will change and I will do this, but it will be sometime in the future. So you really want a time scale. You want to nail it down. And the last thing is, how will that change be monitored? How will you know that they have actually changed, that something has been done, that they have gone for help? And you want some accountability. And that may be a wee bit difficult to get from the drinker, but try very, very hard to nail it down. Before going into this intervention, you should have worked out exactly what the consequences of not changing are, what it is that you're prepared to do, and how long will you actually wait. So if you don't see change within a certain time, what is it that you're going to do? Are you going to start and look at separation? Are you going to start and look at separation for a short time, for a long time, permanent? What is it that you're liable to do? So you're hoping that this is not something that you have to bring up at this intervention. You may sort of mention it in the way past, but not really try and enforce it. But if an agreement is not made, then you may have to state those consequences. You may have to state that if I don't see change, if there is no agreement here, if it's not done by a certain time, then this is what I'm going to do. It adds weight to the intervention, it adds weight to what it is that you're going to say. As I said, you're hoping that that's not something that you have to state, but you may have to. You may also have to state it earlier than the intervention, just to get your drinker to come to the intervention period, because they really might not be wanting to come to an intervention. They might not want to come and expose themselves to what they see as an attack on their drinking. And in that situation, you may have to say, well, if you don't come and talk to us, then I will. Again, it has to be something that, not that necessarily that you're comfortable with, but that you're prepared to do, that you feel that you have no choice but to do it. What we've looked at so far really is a full-scale intervention, where you have your team, you have your goals, you have your consequences, and it's a case of almost all or nothing. Many people see it as a last-ditch effort, that this is the last opportunity, or the last throw of the dice, that if this doesn't work, then that's the end of it. But interventions don't have to be all or nothing. They can be scaled down. Now, if you're not really wanting to go all in the intervention, then what you can do is you can have a much scaled down one, really really a sort of one-to-one, where you do go through a sort of intervention, but instead of having a team with you, it's just you and the drinker. I have to say that, you know, they are not as powerful. The power comes really from the team. The power comes from the fact that there's lots of other people there who are putting pressure on the drinker. And the drinker really, what sort of kind of motivates the change really is the fact that lots of other people know about the drinking, rather people know about the issues. And that really helps to motivate the drinker over the... So a one-to-one may work. It may be something that, you know, can push the drinker towards, towards change. But it's not as powerful as a full intervention. That doesn't mean to say it's not worth trying. Of course it's worth trying. Anything's worth trying. The other thing is that, you know, it doesn't, again, have to be completely all or nothing sort of lifetime abstinence or nothing at all. Goals can be incremental. It can be about, you know, stopping for a period. It can be about cutting down. It can be about only drinking on certain days. It can be about putting boundaries in. So, again, you know, it can be sort of pushing the drinker towards drinking less. And lastly, you know, the consequences that you put forward, they don't have to be final. It doesn't have to be, okay, it's this or divorce. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be, well, I'm going to leave you to change for, you know, a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, I'm going away on holiday. Or I'm going to go and stay with my mother. Or I'm going to go and stay with my friends. I'm going to go and do something else. And, you know, all of these things are valid, and all of these things may help towards your ultimate goal. But again, as I said, that the most powerful intervention of all is what we've described so far. Well, I hope you found this intervention useful. I hope it's given you ideas. I hope it's given you a good grounding in, if you want to actually carry out an intervention, then you will know what to do in future. As I said right at the beginning, it's not an easy thing to do. It is hard work, and you have to put in that effort. It's not just a formula of words, you know, you just walk into the room and say, right, this is the intervention and live happily ever after. That only happens in sitcoms. It only happens in movies. The real intervention really is about preparing yourself, about feeling confident, about feeling prepared for it. And that comes from doing the research, from gathering a team together, from preparing yourself mentally to do this, so that you do feel confident, that you do feel that you have the information that you require going into this intervention, but also that you are prepared in as much as to, if this doesn't work, if there's no change, if there's no movement here, then I am prepared to do whatever it is you're prepared to do, and that you are prepared to carry that through. That it's not an ultimatum, it's not just a empty threat. Whatever it is you're prepared to do, you're prepared to do it. So, but as I said, maybe, you know, you can do a sort of smaller intervention, or, you know, go for a more incremental goal. It's up to you. But the most powerful intervention of all is the all singing, all dancing with a team. I wish you good luck, and hope whatever it is that you do, that you are successful. Okay, that's it. Goodbye.